Let's jump right into today's explainer. We're going on a pretty wild journey today, moving from the absolute awe of watching a live musical performance straight into the hidden and frankly remarkable mechanics of your very own mind. We're going to explore this brilliant concept based on the work of Ivana Song, looking at exactly how the brain adapts to extreme complexity. If you've ever watched a musician and thought, how on earth do they do that? Well, by the end of this explainer, you're not only going to understand their secret, but you'll realize you actually possess the exact same superpower.
I completely love this quote because it hits the nail on the head for what I like to call the iceberg technique of observation. You see, when we watch a concert pianist effortlessly glide across the keys, or a drummer lock into just an insane rhythm, we are really only seeing the tip of the iceberg. Beneath the surface of that effortless performance, there are literally hundreds of invisible processes unfolding simultaneously. Their eyes are reading a score, their fingers are executing these tiny micro movements, their ears are analyzing pitch and timing all at once. It is an absolute neurological symphony happening in real time, completely hidden from our view.
And that brings us to the core scientific anchor for everything we're talking about today: neuroplasticity. Basically, this is your brain's incredible ability to physically change and reorganize itself through experience. Now, neuroscientists have actually spent decades studying the brains of musicians for a very specific reason. They are the absolute clearest, most dramatic examples of neuroplasticity in action. Why? Because playing music demands that the brain engage hearing, movement, memory, attention, and emotion, all at the exact same time. It is the ultimate full-brain workout.
Moving into Section 1, from technique to creativity, where we'll look at how the brain automates the basics. When we look closely at the neuroscience of practice, it's wild to see just how much real estate the brain dedicates to making music. What's happening when a musician practices isn't just building muscle memory, it's a literal rewiring of the brain to make neural networks remarkably more efficient. Think about it. When a guitarist strums a single chord, they aren't just using their hands. Their auditory cortex is instantly processing the tone. The motor regions are directing the strum, the cerebellum is perfectly timing the rhythm, the executive functions are planning the next chord change, and the emotion regions are deciding exactly how that chord should feel. All of these distinct systems are communicating with lightning speed, simultaneously.
So, you might be wondering, how does anyone actually manage all of that at once? Well, a beginner's brain has to use an enormous amount of energy on the absolute basics. Their internal monologue is loud. Where should my finger go? Am I doing this right? But as they practice, those neural networks become so amazingly efficient that the physical movements just become completely automatic. And here's the real magic trick of neuroplasticity. Once the technique is automated, the brain frees up all those massive mental resources for pure creativity, interpretation, and expression.
To put that into perspective, think back to when you first learned how to drive. You were probably sweating bullets just trying to manage the clutch, the gear stick, and, not hit the mailbox. Your brain was absolutely maxed out. But today, you can navigate complex, fast-moving traffic while sipping a coffee and having a deep conversation with your passenger. Your brain learned to use its existing resources more efficiently, pushing the heavy mechanics completely into the background.
Which brings us to Section 2, listening and predicting the future. Let's see how the brain is always one step ahead. We often tend to think of our brains as just reacting to the world around us, but actually, your brain is a brilliant prediction machine. While a musician is playing one note, their brain is already running this incredible four-step loop for the next note. It prepares the movement, estimates exactly how it should sound, and then compares that prediction to reality. If there's a tiny mismatch, a micro mistake, the brain doesn't panic. It uses that mismatch as highly valuable information to refine the very next movement. They are literally listening ahead of the music, adapting in milliseconds. It turns out mistakes aren't failures at all. They're the fuel for real-time learning.
And there is literally no better example of this prediction loop than jazz improvisation. When a jazz musician takes a solo, there is no script. Every single note is a starting point for the next one. They have to listen to the band, predict where the harmony is going, and invent a brand new melody right on the spot. But this isn't random magic, guys. It is intense creativity built entirely on the discipline of thousands of hours of practice. That practice allows their brain to draw on vast experience in the literal blink of an eye.
All right, diving into Section 3, emotion and human collaboration. We'll explore creating a single musical voice.
You see, music isn't just math and timing. It is profoundly human. Audiences don't remember perfect notes. They remember how a performance made them feel. And conveying that requires massive emotional regulation from the performer.
Experience doesn't magically erase stage fright or nervousness. Instead, neuroplasticity changes the brain's relationship to that pressure. The pounding heart and adrenaline stop being an obstacle, and instead, they're transformed into a source of energy, razor-sharp focus, and deep presence. It's a complete masterclass in performing under pressure.
And they aren't just regulating their own emotions up there. They are actively syncing up with everyone else on stage. Whether it's a giant symphony orchestra or a heavy metal band, musicians are constantly reading unspoken signals. A quick glance, a subtle shift in weight, a smile, a slight emphasis on a note, these tiny cues allow a group of individuals to instantly change tempo or dynamics together. Their brain activity literally becomes synchronized. It's this profound level of attentive listening and prediction that allows 4 or 5 totally separate people to sound like a single unified organism.
And that brings us perfectly to Section 4. You have one too. What happens when music becomes a life skill?
Okay, here's where we turn the mirror right back around to you. Because everything we've just talked about, the automation of mechanics, the real-time prediction loops, the emotional regulation, the subtle collaboration, that isn't just the story of the musician's brain. It is the story of your brain. The exact same mechanisms are at work whenever you develop a complex skill. Think about a hairdresser who feels the need for a different angle just through the resistance of their scissors, or a teacher who senses a drop in engagement before a single word is even spoken, an entrepreneur spotting a market opportunity intuitively, or a parent who immediately knows something is wrong just from a micro-shift in their child's tone of voice. If you have spent years doing something, your brain has rewired itself to notice, predict, and adjust with extraordinary precision.
Remember that jazz improviser we talked about earlier? Well, connect that directly to this experienced salesperson. You walk into a pitch with a flawless plan, and suddenly the client asks a curveball question that derails the whole shebang. You can't just hit pause to write a new script, right? Just like the jazz musician, your brain has to draw on what it already knows, read the room in the moment, and adjust your response on the fly. It's those years of experience that give you the neural resources to pivot instantly.
Of course, none of these abilities just magically appear overnight. We become better at whatever we return to, again and again. Every single time you practice a skill, navigate a difficult conversation, or adapt to a new challenge, you are leaving a small neural trace in your brain. And over time, those thousands of invisible, almost mundane repetitions completely stack up. They physically change the structure of your brain, building the solid foundation of your unique expertise and your confidence. But here is the absolutely crucial warning and the great promise of neuroplasticity. Your brain honestly doesn't judge what it learns. It simply adapts to whatever gets your sustained attention. You can use this incredible mechanism deliberately to refine a skill, build a business, or strengthen a relationship. But if you aren't paying attention, your brain can just as easily use that exact same neuroplasticity to automate a habitual stress response or a negative thought pattern. You get better at exactly what you practice, for sure, whether you consciously mean to practice it or not.
Which leaves us with one final, vital thought for this explainer. The musician's brain proves that we are physically shaped by our experiences, our focus, and our dedication. The direction your brain takes depends entirely on what you choose to return to day after day. You have this extraordinary, adaptable machine sitting right inside your head, just waiting to be shaped. So I want to leave you with this question to really ponder today. What are you training your brain to do right now?